Alex, thank you for joining me. We're looking forward to having you come share at NFT.London, but you're coming to us from New York right now, where so much of the energy of our team's events have happened over the last 4 years. And you're an executive at one of, but you're also a visual artist. You've been a musician. And so you understand so many elements of the content creator side of things, even though you're in your specific role as the creative director. So for folks that don't know you, or maybe folks that aren't super in tune with what one of is doing and has done, can you give us a little background, please?
Sure. Yeah. Great to be here. Great to be here in New York City. I've been speaking at NFT NYC for the past couple years. I'm very excited for London. So I got into the space as an artist, still creating quite a bit of art, but I've been at one of now for a little over a year, right before they launched. And we're essentially an NFT platform for musicians, brands, athletes who are trying to get into the space. We were ultimately founded by Quincy Jones, so we're kind of on that level of artist relations, and launched with artists like Doja Cat and Alesso, and have since worked with brands like the Grammys and Pepsi, and now through Sports Illustrated are working with quite a bit of athletes as well. So it's sort of an all-encompassing platform, curated. We do the marketing, we do the promoting. I myself handle the sort of creative development and artist relations. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been, a wild ride. This space is, definitely crazy, but I've had unbelievable experiences working with amazing people, and just very excited for what's to come.
And besides speaking at our event a couple of times, I know you spoke at Art Basel, you spoke at NFT LA, Canes, a bunch of different organizations. Can you give us some insight? What is the place of conferences and events that gather people together in the NFT industry? And what is the advantage for an organization like one of? Why show up? Why speak? Why engage? I'd just love to get some thoughts from you on events as they are today, and what you see as a benefit to them, and happy to hear your critique as well. I have plenty.
No, sure. I mean, I love the events. Personally, I guess I'm like you. I really like meeting new people, and I really like, talking about what people are passionate about and what they're excited about, and making those connections. As I mentioned to you earlier, I got into the space as an artist, and it was all going down on Clubhouse. And it was about a full year of that, and definitely met a lot of wonderful people and really amazing artists, and did some cool collaborative projects with a bunch of people. But it really wasn't until I was at NFT NYC the first time around. I guess it was November.
Yeah, last fall.
One with my first.
Yep.
And got to meet these people in person. And, I just started working at one of, and I got to meet all of them in person for the first time too. And, coming out of lockdown, that was what made it really real for me. I could meet these artists who I'd been speaking to for a long time in person. I could meet new people. I could, see these different companies and brands put themselves out there, show their projects, show what they're working on. And that really, I think, is what made me dive even deeper into the space. And since then, as you said, I've been going and speaking at pretty much every event I can. It's been a really amazing way to not only meet people and learn about them, but also try to teach people and educate people about what I've been doing, what one of us been doing, how we can work together in the space and onboard new people. I think it plays a crucial role, and very, very excited for London. I've never been before, so it'll be a cool experience in a lot of ways.
It will be cool because it's almost always cold.
Yeah. There you go.
I love London. I spent a lot of time in Great Britain, a lot of great friends there. We'll
Amazing.
be speaking about how musicians can succeed in the Web3 space. Love to hear your just initial kind of thoughts around that. Then I'd like to ask a couple things specifically regarding that.
Sure. Yeah. You know, the music industry has its fair share of issues, and it's hard for musicians, musical artists to monetize their artwork. That was the case for visual artists as well. And I think the initial boom in the NFT space was a disruption of that. You saw visual artists get attention and compensation that they hadn't ever before. And we at One Of are really working on trying to bring that to musicians as well. It's, I would argue, a little more complicated because of the decades of history and different rights being distributed across a lot of different companies and record labels and so on and so forth, and piracy and streaming. There's a lot to kind of unpack and work through. But we're trying to do it at any level we can. We're working with some big stars who certainly have a lot of industry ties. So we try to create what we can out of the restrictions that are present there. And then we have kind of more emerging artists who might not have a record deal, who can be a little more independent and, take advantage of the technology and really use it in interesting and innovative ways. I think, and I've said this to visual artists as well, I don't think people should focus exclusively on using the NFT space as their only means to reaching an audience and only ways of making revenue. But I think it can be a really effective tool for an artist to obviously get revenue, but also reach new people. You've seen it happen at a lot of different levels, but one thing One Of has been doing that's pretty cool is we have a program called Co-Signed, where we have a templatized NFT that we release weekly, and we'll Quincy's A&R people will essentially get an emerging artist, onboard them into the space, and give them a very kind of simple templated NFT collection that we drop for them. And it's been a really wonderful way to kind of get more emerging up and coming artists on our platform besides the kind of superstars that we usually work with.
Well, that's good to hear. I was going to ask a bit about that. But before we talk about the new opportunities for emerging artists, on the worldwide superstar level, you have two types of artists, estates, and that you're serving, right? You have the living artists. So these are the Doja Cat and the Aliso. And then you have those that still have estates and agents and organizations representing them, the Whitney Houstons and the Biggie Smalls. So how do you approach something? Okay, let's make it tangible. A couple of the great pieces of art in terms of TV lately that I've enjoyed is Kanye's new documentary on Netflix and Elvis's new movie about his life. So this would be an example, right? Worldwide living celebrity that's actively making art, that's not doing anything with NFTs, and the king of rock and roll, right? So if these were to come to you, Elvis's estate and Kanye, they come to you and say, okay, like, what are you going to do? How do you approach these types of things differently? I'd love to get some thoughts from you on that, not just because I'm interested, but also there could be people watching our conversation or referencing it in the future where they say, okay, so this is kind of how we would approach One Of, because we're coming with X person's estate, or we're coming with our intellectual property and we're still out there making things happen.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so the legacy acts are unique, right? And legacy music obviously has a major place in the industry. People listen to, legacy music across the board. Our probably first very, very successful drop was our Whitney Houston drop that we did about a year ago. And that one was successful for a lot of reasons. Part of it was good planning, part of it was luck. But I think one of the things that really made it authentic and resulted in the success that we saw is that we worked very, very closely with her family. And from the selection of the visual artist, Diana Sinclair, who we had create the art for it, to having members of the family come to Art Basel and be a part of our event there and take part in the marketing and the press and the creation of it. I think that's so key in doing a legacy drop well. The same was the case with Biggie. I think working with the estate, but also working with, former musicians or current musicians who worked with him in the past and, were able to advise us on the creative. When we were doing the generative, we went back and forth with them quite a bit about, what the different attributes are going to be, if this is something Biggie would actually wear, if this was something that he would like. That meant a lot, and I think is really important when it comes to legacy drops. Obviously, living artists is different. You try to get them as involved, but also it's similar in that it's really just about getting them as involved as possible. The more that a musician leans into their drop, especially, if they have a big fan base, that's very, exciting and can lead to a big drop. But also that means they're extremely busy because, this is, again, just one of their tools among the millions of things they're doing. But, the ones who have taken the time to lean into it and be engaged and follow through with the drop correlates directly with how well it does. So that's something to consider, like whether it's you yourself are a musician, or if you want to bring a musician to a one of or whomever, like them actually being into it and excited about it and, willing to kind of go that extra mile, I think is really important.
When it comes to a drop that happens, first you have to engage an audience, and then you have to give them a great experience. So you can't have a great experience if there's no audience that's engaged. Can you talk a bit about the funnel, right? Like, how do you get people engaged? And then how do you get them down a funnel to where they have the great experience that ideally leads to loyalty and commitment and great community? But can you walk through those two things from OneUp's perspective, especially the creative director? Okay, how do we tell the world about this and get them to come? And then how do we give them their expectation or more than what they're expecting from us?
Sure. Yeah. One thing we've implemented that's been really helpful in getting just the fan base who doesn't even know anything about crypto or NFTs paying attention is so we use proof of stake blockchains like Tezos and Polygon. So we can mint at an extremely low cost. And to that end, we mint free NFTs quite a bit. We'll mint, a large quantity, sometimes even open edition collections of free NFTs ahead of the actual primary sale drop. And that's really just for user acquisition. It's so that, whoever artist can put out, here is a free NFT that you can collect. All you need on OneUp is, a username, email, and credit card or any other crypto that you want to pay with, and you can collect a free NFT. Now they've gone through the process. They know how it works. They see how easy it is. And now we also have a big pool of people who are paying attention and might be interested in buying an NFT. And then we'll follow that up with the purchasable NFTs. And at that point, they kind of get it. They are introduced to what the utility will be that comes with those NFTs they can buy. And that's been very, very helpful. And then there's the, standard kind of marketing, getting on Twitter, doing Twitter spaces. We use Discord quite a bit. Obviously other socials, Instagram and TikTok, to spread awareness, but getting them that free NFT, it has been really, really helpful of just like walking them through that process and also showing them that, not all NFTs are, $300 or more. And to that end also, we often, when we do our primary sale NFTs, we'll have kind of a lower tier, affordable NFT for $5, $10. So might have sweepstakes utility. All of them have utility built in, but those will also kind of just be more approachable and easy for your standard music fan to wrap their head around versus, dropping quite a bit of money, which we have those tiers as well. But we like having sort of a diverse array of choices.
So that may lead to people asking about custodial versus non-custodial, because you have this massive community and maybe less than 10% of a certain artist community has any knowledge of what a wallet is, how to get a wallet, how to buy crypto, how to put in the wallet, blah, 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 blah. So I assume that at one point had a certain perspective of custodial versus non-custodial. I assume that you're on a bridge going somewhere in terms of like, this is our ideal. We'd like to get here, and this is how we're dealing with it today. Can you walk us through the journey of and the perspective of, do we provide non-custodial, custodial options, and how do we navigate these waters based on what the market clearly needs some hand holding, yet some people are very adamant about them holding ownership as they should be. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. Yeah. And I agree, there is a direction we want to go, and the ownership is the ultimate goal we're trying to reach with this. But OneOf very firmly has taken the stance that we are really trying to appeal to the new audience. We're really trying to make it easy. So the wallet does exist on the OneOf website, but that has allowed us to, with our Grammys NFT, we onboarded over 100,000 people just in that one collection. And it really was, all they needed was their email, and having a credit card option for payment has been really important. Continuing from there, we have enabled exporting of your NFTs into your wallet, specifically with the the Tezos NFTs, which is what we use for our music NFTs. And those can be exported to your object wallet and then traded around. And then when we started doing our sports and lifestyle NFTs, we minted those on Polygon, which allowed us to partner with OpenSea, and then they're able to put it on OpenSea secondary. So we're little by little, trying to expand that. But as you kind of alluded to, it is a process, and it is something we've been kind of building towards. But the priority is definitely really just kind of ease of use and accessibility for your average music fan, rather than sort of your NFT crypto savvy buyer.
You had mentioned emerging artists earlier in our conversation, and I want to be sensitive to time, so I imagine
no worries.
Wrap up in a moment. But can you talk about what OneOf is bringing to market for emerging artists? What do you mean by emerging artists? Is that like 1 million or more followers on TikTok is emerging? Is it 10 million? Is it 100,000? Not that that is the metric, but I'm assuming that there are metrics by which, if you have this size audience and community that's loyal to you, and you are an emerging artist, we have something to offer you. So can you walk through that with us for just a moment?
Sure. Yeah. You're right. I mean, and in my opinion, it's hard to put a metric to it. We have done drops with artists of all following sizes, all level of experience. The cosign program was our first foray in really kind of championing people who might not have gotten, their big break per se yet, or maybe are doing well in the Web3 space, but haven't really broken to the mainstream music, landscape yet. We have a really talented A&R team from Quincy Jones Productions who's been doing this for, years and years, and they find who they think is going to be, the next big thing. But meanwhile, I personally am also trying to always diversify things. It's obviously great for us to get the really big musicians, right? Because again, our mission is onboarding people. So we want, musicians who have a wide reach, who have, fans who would be interested in getting into the space and supporting their favorite artist. So we are always going to, be looking for that. But, we, besides the cosign program, are trying to implement more and more ways that smaller musicians might be able to even collaborate with larger ones. We, with our Biggie drop, we had a freestyle, very famous Biggie freestyle that we actually acquired as part of our deal. And the Biggie holders actually have rights to that freestyle and to distribution of it. So we've been experimenting with the idea of this collective, this Biggie collective of holders we've had put together, using this freestyle and being able to, add it to their music. And it becomes, this artist collaborated with Biggie. And, this is all with the estate's blessing and something they're excited about. But these are kind of innovative ways we've been able to elevate musicians. We did a drop with Masego and FKJ and did something of a remix contest where people took their very famous song Tadao and remixed it, and we rewarded them with NFTs and other utilities and things like that, where it's, maybe we have the large artist involved, but we're able to connect them with more up and coming musicians or visual artists even, and elevate them that way. So that's always the mission. It's always artists first and trying to give a platform to artists large and small. So we're just going to keep doing that.
Well, I like that approach. I want to ask about utility, and take your time to answer. And by the way, you can always say, I don't have an answer. On utility, what I'm looking for you to share with me and us is guardrails. So if you have the pendulum swing to the most extremes, if on one extreme, full exclusive commercial rights, that would be the most crazy utility of all time. And on the other extreme, you can listen to the song on Spotify. It's already there. It's utility. So if those are extremes, where do you find comfortable guardrails as you and your team are advising artists about what to do in terms of like, hey, over here, this is about as generous of a utility thing that would maybe suggest you consider. And over here, this is about the least that you're going to want to offer the community so that it has real tangible value. Can you give us some idea of where that range is for music projects specifically?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's big. It's a wide range. You can get creative with it. So again, most of us come from the music industry. So we have our our utility that radio stations have been using for decades. You have your meet and greets, you have your VIP tickets, you have your flyaways. Then we've gotten a little more high tech with it. We've done kind of Zoom concerts specifically for holders. We're partnering with a few programs to do, digital live concerts in metaverse, things of that nature. You have memorabilia, you have physical things. So these are all, not new, but things that make a difference, when especially if you're selling a, cheaper NFT, but you still have the potential of getting this very high value thing that is enough to get people interested. But it gets more exciting when you kind of get into newer things. So one drop we're working on right now, holders will actually get the chance to co-design the merch line for this musician and get 50% royalties on that line of merch. So that kind of collaborative working together between the artist and the holder is what's exciting to me. We did the drop we're doing with the cool kids coming up is very exciting. We partnered with Async, the NFT platform that has very cool kind of generative audio technology. And the cool kids put together a bunch of different stems, and holders will be able to manipulate those stems and create entirely new pieces of music using, the assets that the cool kids provided us. So that kind of interactive gamification has been cool. What else? I mean, there's with the Biggie freestyle, I think that's sort of us exploring, people actually getting part ownership in a historical piece of music. And we did a drop with the singer Pia Mia, and that was a royalty share. So that was actually, the song was put on DSPs and Spotify and so on and so forth, and holders actually got percentages of the royalties from the music. So it's you know, we always ask for the moon, when we're working with these musicians, and then we have to kind of work our way back and see, okay, what is actually possible? Because as I said at the beginning, there are a lot of restrictions, and it's something we work through. But we try to really get as much as we can, because I think that's what gets people excited. That's what gets people wanting to buy it, and I think it's really the future of all of it and why we're doing this.
Well, why don't we end on a personal note and your perspective as an artist? I'd love for you to touch one or two topics on that. You go and do murals in New York City. Yeah, you still make physical visual art, creating, painting shoes and things of that nature. And of course, you've had success in the NFT environment. So two things I'd love to hear from you on is, one, what is your feeling as an artist yourself? Not your role with one of, not the music stuff you work on or the amazing things happening with the sports athletes, but just as an artist yourself. Used to be a musician, today still a visual artist. How are you feeling in terms of empowered? What's working? What are you most attracted to? If there's an artist out there that's like you but hasn't looked into it, what might you say to their interest in leaning in?
I'll be honest, like Web3 and NFTs and all that really completely changed my career as an artist. I was doing well with my custom shoes and, getting some attention. But, during lockdown, during COVID, I was really kind of just sitting at home making art, but I couldn't really go and do murals. I do a lot of live drawing at events, so I wasn't doing that. So once I got onto Clubhouse and started connecting with other artists in the space, like that's what really kind of kickstarted my career as a visual artist as well. And what I just said is that connecting with other artists has been the key for me. I really have discovered an artistic community in this space, and I think that's crucial for a visual artist, a musical artist, whatever. It's connecting with other artists, collaborating. I think it's obviously good just for putting together good projects, but it's also very motivating. It's very, exciting. So working on stuff with other people and being able to talk through what you're working on and hear what they're working on, I think is really important. So getting into the space, meeting the people who are working in it is a really great way to just meet other artists, put together great projects with them. So many brands, or even like musicians at one of, now need visual artists to, create assets for them. So it's an amazing opportunity to work with. I never thought I'd be working with Amex or, whomever, but this space, this kind of niche space, you can be part of that niche. It's not going to be niche for long, but you can be a part of that right now and be this sort of select few of experienced and knowledgeable people that a lot of brands and big musicians and, whomever are paying attention to. So yeah, I'm just going to keep making stuff, and, it's therapeutic for me and something I really enjoy, and has turned out to be an asset to my job at one of two, being an artist. So, I just encourage people, whether you're, doing it just for fun, or whether you have a creative job but don't make art, just being creative and being artistic, I think should be an asset, in business as well. And I think that's overlooked. Being a little artistic and weird and out there is I think how people are going to think more in the future, and, really kind of get, that's how it's Web3, you can come up with something and it can happen. That's the really crazy thing, you can come up with the most out there idea. We want, to get this Biggie freestyle and seed it out to different holders and all of this thing that sounds pretty crazy, but it's something that is achievable. And I think that's super exciting, as an artist, as a member of a company or business in the space, or what have you. So roundabout way of saying, be creative, make stuff, don't be shy about it, and just keep going.
Love that. Well, I could just keep asking questions. I'm very intrigued. Obviously, we have extended our conversation past my usual. Final question I will ask you is a matter of you setting a tone for how to honor a visual artist. So with a musician, there's the musician, there's maybe a label, and then there's a tech partner like one of. When an organization or an individual musician is reaching out to a visual artist to talk about collaboration, what would be an honorable, respectful, thoughtful way for them to approach a visual artist like yourself? And what would be a way to do so that would lend toward having the best end result for everyone involved?
That's me giving away my job secret. That's basically what I do, and that's what I'm best at, is really,
keep it a secret. Keep it a secret.
Yeah, no, and I will. It's really no secret. It's being a nice person, but basically, I think me being an artist gives me a lot of credibility when I'm approaching other visual artists to work with a partner, and it's also, I think, either they can sense or I put it across that, like, I have their interests in mind. Like, I really am doing this because I want to elevate visual artists and give them opportunities. So, that's, I think, comes across when I'm approaching people. And I'm also approaching them with things that I think will genuinely be really good for their career. I don't know. I mean, I always just kind of come across with compliments because I'm talking to them because I like their work. So I'll tell them I like their work. I'll tell them why. And then I'll kind of from there be like, I actually think your work would work really well with this musician or this brand, and this is what it could look like. And I try to be, extremely transparent. And also, being an artist, I kind of know how much work it takes to do things, which is something I think people overlook. People will be like, oh, you can't 3D render this, entire figure, and then give me a million variations of it. It takes like an unbelievable amount of work. So, keeping that in mind, keeping in mind bandwidth, keeping in mind other stuff I'm sure they're working on, is really important. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad I asked. And I think you do a great service to the industry in terms of bringing the puzzle pieces together. So there's probably a lot of folks that would say thank you for that, and that it's important that you keep going, because collaboration is not just important in life, but certainly it's vital in all of our Web3, NFT, metaverse, crypto, DeFi things that we do with all of our different labels that we put on them. Alex, thank you so much for joining me today. Anybody that wants to connect with Alex, there is his Twitter handle. We look forward to having you come speak at NFT.London, and we'd encourage all of you to join us November 3rd and 4th.